So I have to ask then, what was it like the first time you're flying U-2, you're up there all by yourself, which it has to feel like some sort of way, but do you remember the first time you got up there high enough to see like the curvature of the earth and you're up there by yourself
Oh
and
yeah.
seeing the sun rising and setting and like what was
Yeah, so the first time you go up in the U2, we have trainers, so two-seat trainers. So you go you go with an instructor. So my first flight, I'll tell you later on we'll tell a story about getting integrated into the cockpit
okay.
and having a blast of air go places that boldly went where no one had gone before. Anyway, we'll talk about that story later. But going up and flying with another pilot and you're passing like 45,000 feet and you're going up. But once you start seeing it, yeah, it just gives you this perspective. So
Mhm.
you get to see the earth just, you're small in comparison to everything else that's
Yeah.
above. And it's just like, man, all the drama at the end of the day, why deal with that? I'm Meryl Tankestall, retired Air Force Colonel. You guys might know me as the Dragon Lady. I flew the SH-60 helicopter in the Navy before switching over to the Air Force and becoming the first and only black woman to fly the U-2 spy plane. My last job was at the Pentagon, where I was the Director of Inspection for the Inspector General.
I'm retired Lieutenant Colonel Caroline Jensen. I go by the call sign Blaze. I flew the F-16 Fighting Falcon, better known as the Viper, in the Air Force during Operation Iraqi Freedom, and was later selected as the first female reserve officer to fly with the prestigious United States Air Force Air Demonstration Squadron, known as the Thunderbirds. My son also happened to be the first kid to ever get to watch his mom fly with an advanced jet demo team.
All fire, no smoke is our candid conversation as two military aviators sharing the unique experiences we've had in combat, reconnaissance, and demonstration flying.
Through personal stories, technical details, and laughter, we explore the challenges of balancing leadership, motherhood, professional life, all while offering inspiring insights for those who are trying to strike that work-life balance.
I don't want to talk to you.
It's a little late for that.
Too bad!
Dragon lady. So I saw Top Gun in 1986 and I was 11 years old and I really wanted to be a fighter pilot. I didn't want to be Charlie. I wanted to be Maverick. And so I was really excited about it. I wanted to go in the Air Force. I didn't want to go Navy. No offense, but
None taken, none taken.
So I went to my liaison officer for the Air Force Academy and I was like, hey, I want to be a fighter pilot. And he said, well, 1, you're too early for application to the Air Force Academy, and 2, women aren't allowed to fly fighters, which was pretty defeating. That, struck me right in the heart. And I told my dad about it, and he told me about the service of the women Air Force service pilots during World War II who ferried every aircraft or flew every aircraft in the inventory, did a bunch of different missions except for combat, but they got to fly all the pursuit aircraft as well. And he told me that the rules had changed once and that they could change back again. And so it was my job to be ready so that when the rules changed, I would be qualified and standing there in line. And that's exactly what happened. I graduated from high school in May of 94, and just less than a year, actually, in April 93,
They switched it
they
over.
had changed the combat exclusion
Mhm.
for women. And so, my last year of high school, everything that I wanted to do was a possibility all of a sudden. And so it was really my dad telling me about the story of the World War II WASP that really inspired me, not just to prepare to go in, but to get through some hard times too when I was in the military.
It's kind of funny because people always say, oh, like at this time, the rules are this or the rules are that.
Yeah.
Man, people change rules out of necessity. How many times, like right now in the military,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, you have to be 29 to finish flight school. Oh, but now you got to be like the Coast Guard opened up to 35, I think.
Okay.
Everything's waiverable. So,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, people out there who are like, hey, these rules are popped up. Like, there's always a way around something.
Yeah.
Like, there's always a possibility, or you do something adjacent and kind of like slide in there.
Yeah.
So
So how does a girl from the Bronx end up flying $1 million helicopters, multi-million-dollar helicopters, and go into space in a U-2?
How? I just, like, there was no one who ever said I couldn't do it. And, like, my mom she never said, oh, you can't be that. I would only tell you that people had a certain, thought of how I should conduct myself. But I figured by third grade, I just wanted to be myself. Like, I knew, like, it was like, I don't want to be like I always talk about when you have report cards, I used to put them in the sleeve jacket thing, and on the back of it said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it had boys side like firefighter,
Wow.
soldier, astronaut. And then on the girl side, it was like, and there's no offense to any of these jobs,
Right.
nurse, secretary, flight hostess.
Uh,
Yeah. And I was like, mother.
wow.
And I was like, huh, that side looks so much more dangerous and appealing.
Yeah.
And then by third grade, I was just like, I checked another box that said that was blank, and I just put myself. And I was like, screw
Wow.
this. So I knew in my head, I was like, man, I'm going to at least finish high school with a degree. I know I'm going to go to college. The next part, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I'm going to go to a branch of service because at that time, it's either commercial or military. I couldn't afford any commercial stuff. So I said, man, the first time I flew was when I went to college because my college had a good engineering program, but they also had a aviation business offering. So I knew there
Okay.
was an airport, Tweed Airport nearby, and I had some friends that were doing that program. So I flew with my friend one time in a Cessna. It was hecka bumpy. I got like I didn't feel good, and I was like, let's just forget about that. I'm still gonna go fly and still
Yeah.
do what I need to do. But I just always knew. Like I
Yeah.
said, man, you can't stop me from joining the military and flying. Like I didn't want to go to the academy. No offense. I know you went to the
Yeah.
academy. I
None
wanted,
taken.
yeah, I wanted to go to a 4-year college because I wanted the college experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so growing up, you always wanted
Yeah.
to fly?
Yeah, I wanted to fly since I was a little girl. I saw a movie with airplanes flying around the clouds,
What
which
movie
is,
was this?
I don't even know. It was like a biplane and they're big, puffy clouds. I was like 6 years old, so it was like 1981 or two, something like that. But it was really cool.
It's the olden days.
It's the olden days, yeah, where you only had like 4 TV channels, and that was like the only thing that was on TV.
I was like
So,
11 when that.
yeah.
So, but you decided that you wanted to. You was like, I'm gonna fly at that point.
Yeah, I did. My dad also was a Vietnam veteran and flew helicopters in Vietnam, so I got to go to the Minnesota National Guard in Camp Ripley with my dad, and we'd see people doing static line jumps out the back of
Oh,
C-130s
sweet.
and helicopters there flying like Hueys and stuff. So I always loved that.
So,
But
so, all right. So when you decided to become a pilot, like when you were growing up in the 1980s, 10 years after I was born, what, like, any obstacles that you face during that time?
yeah, I had a really hard time with math and STEM. And I know, that's really important, obviously, to our pilot career field, but I think more so there's a lot of interpersonal relationship, ability to communicate, um, geometry, like just spatial thinking is really important when you're flying airplanes,
Yes.
as you know. So that was really tricky. And then I'm like,
But what about the STEM and what was difficult about it, like the spatial references? So what
um,
specifically?
I just had a hard time with like calculus, algebra, just had to work really hard. I still got good grades, but it wasn't anything that came naturally to me. So I
Yeah.
don't know, were you a STEM kid?
I well, I was. I mean, I knew at 7 I wanted to be an astronaut, so I knew that I just had to be good in math and science. Like there was no getting around it. So if I had to study hard, I had to study hard. But I was
Yeah.
like one of those kids. Even now, I say to my son or my daughter who's going to need a math tutor, I'm like, dude, I had a math tutor at one
Yeah.
point. I only started honors class, I think around 6th grade. And then once I was there, anything that was STEM related, I did a lot of programs, especially in high school, that were outside school time. So summertime, I was
Cool.
up at the University of Binghamton in New York. I'm from New York. So I went up there one summer for a program that was called STEP, Science Technology Entry,
Cool.
and did that. So we did stuff like organic chemistry. I
Wow.
really did well at organic chemistry for some strange reason. I don't know why, but we did biology, chemistry, organic chemistry, just other things. And
How
then
old were you when you did that?
it was about 15.
Okay. That's
And
pretty
then the
impressive.
next summer, some of us were invited back to work one-on-one with a professor. So I got invited back to do some research in electrical engineering. So for me, I did what was called vacuum technology, which
Wow.
is basically um, it's a vacuum system and you run like very thin, uh, it's thin film deposition, so very like angstrom level film. It's like how semiconductors and stuff are built. So
Mhm.
I did that with this professor. But I mean, I had to work harder. Like
Yeah.
I could joke around a little bit.
Yeah. Not you.
Me, no. So yeah, yeah. For some people, you just have to work harder
Yeah.
at it, and yeah, it's okay if you do. If you struggle, it's okay.
Do you remember like a teacher or a classmate or people that discouraged you at any point towards your dream? Like being an astronaut or flying too
No,
much?
I mean, back in the 70s, like I always tell people, there was always these gender roles, like women and girls are sugar and spice and everything nice, and boys are the rough and tumble.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was just that type of person that like I wanted to play kickball, I wanted to play baseball, I wanted
Yeah.
to do all those things. I didn't want to play with Barbie dolls. I didn't want to stay at home like with a tea set having tea parties.
Yeah.
Lame. It's like for girls who love to do that, I applaud you. Like
Yeah.
my daughter, she'll play with little minis
Yeah.
all day, but to me, I want to play with like Evil Knievel back in the days. They had like some
Yeah.
cool thing or some car. Like that's bomb.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, light
I
up.
was a Barbie person.
Yeah,
Like
I'm so sorry.
I thought they were really expensive because I only had one. My grandma gave me, and then I think I got one more. I was like, they must be just like, out of this world expensive. But I love that. But I also like loved, I was on a farm. We rode horses, and swimming was one of my favorite things. So I loved sports, but Barbie dolls definitely got my
Really?
attention.
No.
So yeah.
Every time I played Barbie dolls with my friends, they gave me like the Barbie doll that like the dog chewed on, and I was just like
Oh
disinterested. Like
no.
it super sucked, man.
Yeah.
Like they'd give me the leftover dresses. I'm like, who the hell wears this?
Yeah.
Like lame. No, give me GI Joe,
Yeah.
Kung Fu Grip,
Yeah.
all day fighting Cobra.
So, what do you remember, like one light bulb moment where you saw something and you're like, I want to do that. I
Yeah.
want to fly. What
Oh
was
yeah.
it?
I watched Star Trek. I wanted
Okay.
to boldly go where no one has gone before.
Awesome.
So I looked at Star Trek as this um, boilerplate to become an astronaut. So I saw it as, James Kirk with all his swagger would always solve these intricate problems that faced the crew of the Enterprise, and he led this diverse group of people to explore strange new worlds. And I'm like, I could do that. That'd be
Yeah.
fun. And so for all of them, they always had this skill set that they always they just expand upon throughout their lives. And I was like, I'm gonna look at every challenge as just building my skill set. And like at 7 years old, I was like, I'm gonna do it. So I built a framework. I was like, I'll be good in math and science. I'll go to college, and then I'll have to fly something. Then I'll be an astronaut. I'll make it at 22. Chekhov was an astronaut at 22. I'll do
So I have to ask then,
it.
what was it like the first time you're flying the U-2, you're up there all by yourself, which it has to feel like some sort of way, but do you remember the first time you got up there high enough to see like the curvature of the earth and you're up there by yourself
Oh
and
yeah.
seeing the sun rising and setting and like what was
Yeah, so the first time you go up in the U2, we have trainers, so 2-seat trainers. So you go you go with an instructor. So my first flight, I'll tell you later on, we'll tell a story about getting integrated into the cockpit
okay.
and having a blast of air go places that that boldly went where no one had gone before. Anyway, we'll talk about that story later. But going up and flying with another pilot, and you're passing like 45,000 feet, and you're going up. First of all, I was breathing really heavily, so my whole canopy was fogged up because you're just so
Oh,
excited and you're just like pumped, and you're just like his canopy was clear, and I'm just like,
so the canopy fog's not the inside of your
oh well,
helmet?
ice, yeah, ice is up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
just because you're just breathing hard. So I was like, okay, I got to get this under control. And then, but once you start seeing it, yeah, it just gives you this perspective. So
Mhm.
you get to see the earth just, you're small in comparison to everything else that's
Yeah.
above. And it's just like, man, all the drama at the end of the day, why deal with that? Like, it's just too much. So where you grew up at? Like you just said you were horses.
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
So I
Where?
started out as a farm girl. My parents got divorced when I was 7. So up until that point, we lived on a farm. We had beef cattle, we had quarter horses. Like I loved all the farm cats. We had some pigs. I think we had corn. And my grandparents were dairy farmers too, like good old Wisconsin dairy farmers. Yeah.
Do you like
So no, I never milked a cow ever in my
I
whole
milked a
life.
cow? You've never got
Is that where you grew up milking cows?
I milked cows in the Bronx.
Yeah.
They were cats. They
Yeah.
hit.
No, so I don't know. I loved riding horses and, chasing butterflies and spending a lot of time outside. And then after my parents divorced, I moved to a small, beautiful little town called River Falls. And I was there from first grade until I graduated 12th grade. But it's just like I have moved back there and it's so beautiful, like rolling hills, and the schools in Wisconsin are great schools
They are
and
great or
they
not?
are great
Okay, yeah.
schools. Yeah. So I didn't have all the organic chemistry options when I was 15 years old. But I had a really great teacher who helped me through my STEM problems. When I took algebra and geometry from Mr. Beebe, he taught me and gave me enough confidence to like do well on my ACTs and to get enough confidence, maybe false confidence, to go into the Air Force Academy, like one of the greatest engineering colleges,
Nice.
and make it through. So my grades were really, I had a really hard time, but I didn't fail anything. But I definitely credit Mr. Beebe for helping me with that education. But I also never flew. I flew an airplane one time when I was 15 years old,
Mhm.
and then I flew to the Air Force Academy to go to swim camp, and then the fourth time I was ever on a plane was going out to the academy for basic training. But I knew I was going to be a pilot, so that's what I wanted to do. But
Nice.
yeah, so that's kind of where I grew up. Is a really beautiful, picturesque little town. You can still go down Old Main Street and, go down. There's a river that runs through the town, and there's a lot of great outdoors things you can do. And the fall in Wisconsin's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, and the winter can get really nasty and cold. So
Is there any skiing?
yeah, there's some downhill skiing, a lot of cross country skiing too. Yeah, you got to work for it.
No.
Some snowshoeing,
I
stuff like
I just
that.
want to go up.
Go sledding.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wanted like a belt or something to take me
Yeah.
up so I could go down.
Yeah. So what was growing up like for you?
In the Bronx, we had, dairy cows and
Yeah.
no, we
Dairy cats.
yeah, dairy cats, and no, we didn't. We had dairy rats.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I grew up in the Bronx, so born and raised in a place called Co-op City. Um, Tall buildings, so I mean, my building, two of them were connected by a basement, and there were 24 stories apiece. Lived on the third
Wow.
floor. It's concrete jungle, so a lot of mass transportation everywhere.
Mhm.
And the cool thing is that we had like a sandbox out in front of my
Oh,
apartment, so I can go out as I please. But growing up, I'm a Gen Xer, so parents wanted you out until it got dark, and then you need to be home.
yeah.
So that was real as you got older. But I mean, most of my time was, going to my schools from K to high school. They were all within a 10-minute walk.
Nice.
Yes.
What did your parents do?
Well, they separated when I was around 7, so
Okay.
same. And my mom worked at a bank, and then when they separated, she got a job working for the post office. So she did that for the remainder of like 20 years or so.
Awesome.
And who knows what my dad did?
Okay.
He just
Yeah.
went away, which was good because I turned out pretty good.
Yeah. So where did you go to college then?
I went to college at the University of New Haven in Connecticut. Okay. So I graduated from Truman High School in the Bronx. Like my focus was math and science. I was an honors student, so I graduated with honors, what they called honors back then. In New York City, you have to take Regents exams and all those. And then I went to University of New Haven, small private school in Connecticut. It's, they had a pretty good engineering program at the time, so I went into the electrical engineering program.
And did you do ROTC there?
I did it for 2 years for the Air Force.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. No offense to the Air Force, they just weren't my cup of tea at that time.
Okay.
At that point, it solidified that I wanted to go Navy. The Air Force wasn't for me. But I came full circle.
Yeah. You found your people when you came back?
Yeah, both wings. So 10 years later, switched over to the Air Force and got to fly.
So what did you fly in the Navy?
In the Navy, I flew helicopters. So I was an SH-60 Bravo pilot, and then I was done with that, went back to T-34s, became a T-34 instructor, and then a T-6 instructor. So when the Navy and the Air Force were buying the T-6, because the Air Force was getting rid of the tweets, the T-37s, thank goodness, those things are obnoxious.
Yeah, they're loud.
They're loud.
They call them tweet for a reason.
Yeah, tweet. So I was one of 4 Navy IPs training Navy and Air Force students at Moody Air Force Base.
Okay.
Growing up in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Is it Wisconsin?
Yeah, depends.
Or Wisconsin?
I think my Wisconsin accent comes out when I say the word Wisconsin, but other than that, I think it's pretty well hidden. Every once in a while, I catch myself saying a vowel funny.
So Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
So growing up in Wisconsin with the barn cats, the cows, the pigs, like Charlotte's Web all over again. Like, what made you think that you could become a pilot after seeing that one show, that one movie? Like, what made you say, yeah, I'm gonna do this?
I guess I love Wisconsin. I've moved back there as well, but I really wanted to go out and see the world.
Yeah.
And my grandmother was a spar in the Coast Guard during World War II, and so she had kind of delayed her life to get to serve her country and was very patriotic and very proud of that. So that was always really something that was ingrained to me. And then my grandfather on the other side of my family also was in World War II, and he was on a Coast Guard cutter and would tell stories about capturing German submarines. And they captured one, and he had to go out in these really rough seas in the North Atlantic to pull survivors off the submarine and bring them aboard the ship. And he said the seas were so rough that if we could find that boat, you'd still see his handprint in the till of the boat to get out there.
Nice.
And get him. And then my dad in Vietnam too, so I had this great example of people who left the comforts of our beautiful state of Wisconsin to go out and serve their country. And so I grew up with this notion that was something I wanted to go out in the world and give back the same way that my family had, to serve something bigger than myself.
So for audiences and people, SPAR, what is?
It's Semper Paratus, always ready. Mm-hmm. And I think Semper Paratus is the Coast Guard motto.
Okay.
And these women basically did clerical office work. My grandma said she would get telegrams and translate them and run them out to the ships in Florida is where she was stationed. So it freed up men to go and do other
men's
jobs.
Work.
Yeah. Freed them up to go ship off to go overseas during World War II. So
very cool.
Yeah.
How long did she do that for?
Probably a year or 2. It's a good question. I'm not sure. But long enough, and it had left a lasting impression on her, and it just was really neat growing up and her saying, "Oh, when I was in the service," she's really proud of it.
Well, it's kind of amazing that you can always, I don't know, you always go back to someone that you've seen do something, and you're like, well, if they could do it, it's, why can't I do that? should be pretty easy, whether it's male, female, or whatever.
Yeah. It sounds like you yourself are one of the most influential people in your career, but is there someone else that you can single out that had a lot of impact that really helped drive you towards your chosen career?
Yeah, I had a lot of mentors. So I mean, they started early. So people as early like Miss Harriet, who would give me books. She knew I was into Star Trek, so she had a whole bunch of Star Trek books. So she would give me Star Trek books,
Oh.
and I just continued reading them until I was like one a day, just reading stuff. I was more interested in reading Star Trek than I was doing my work.
So, did you know Star Trek wasn't real, or did you think it was like there's really people on spaceships in space?
No,
In
I knew it
third
wasn't.
grade?
I knew it wasn't real, but the
Okay.
stories in themselves, like the 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 navigating challenges,
Okay.
it was very interesting to me because the crew of the Enterprise always had some type of obstacle. They always had something, but somehow, like they throw a Hail Mary pass because they remember something that happened before, and they were able to use it for this situation, and they would find a solution. Like that fascinates me. Like
Yeah.
to me, so for example, I'm gonna geek out for a second. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, right? So Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, Kirk has to do the Kobayashi Maru, or they no. It's I forgot her name. Christy Alley was the Vulcan that said she did the Kobayashi Maru. She failed, and they were like, no one's ever passed the Kobayashi Maru except for Kirk. And the reason why Kirk passed is because he reprogrammed the test so he can win. And like this dude would never take no for an answer. He's like, I can figure out anything. And if the system is going to try to stop me, I'm gonna go and rewire it. So that's what I think. Like I'm
Yeah.
like, I look at something, I'm like, yeah, we're gonna break
Yeah.
this. It's gonna get done.
Yeah, when you're in space, you have no other option but to like fix the problem,
You have
right?
yeah, or die.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so to me that's my mindset. Like if I see a problem, I'm like, I'm gonna get this. Like it may take a couple of tries, such
Yeah.
as welding. Yeah, it may take
Yeah.
some burns or something, but we'll figure this out. I don't take no for an answer. There's some way, there's some solution, there's some, middle ground. We can figure something out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just have that mindset. So life is too short to talk about what you can't do. Life is too short to say this is too hard. They said no. Like screw that.
Yeah.
Like get on it and let's go, because if you're not doing it, someone else will. So I want to be that person that does it.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to do your own thing, and
Hell yeah.
if nobody supports you, eventually someone's going to support you. Or and I think especially for you as a Black woman, you probably didn't have a lot of women to look up to, and especially like, or am I wrong? Did you have people that you knew, closer than like a Bessie Coleman that you could model yourself after, and then you have to go and find like men that you have certain characteristics that
Yes,
teach you?
yes, and no offense. I love the Bessie Coleman story, but she was so, I talk about Miss Harriet. I talk about like I had teachers every step of my academic career. I've had teachers who have mentored me and like, hey Meryl, you're really a firecracker. You are wild in your energy. We need to vector you in the right way.
Okay.
Right? So like, cause
They're like reining you in, throttle back.
I don't know if they can rein me in, but they
Yeah.
knew like, oh man, this kid's like, wow. But Bessie Coleman, like, I love her story. I really didn't know much about her growing up
Okay.
from the Bronx. Like I was like Star Trek,
Yeah.
and most people nowadays, I'm like I'm not embarrassed to say it, but I was like, I didn't need anyone who looked like me because I knew there were people who were doing it,
Yeah.
and I was like,
I'm
yeah,
a person.
yeah, I'm a person. Okay,
Yeah.
I might be a little shades of mocha,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna go do this. And if you tell me no, then I'm just gonna
Yeah.
I'm just gonna bypass you.
I love that about you because you hear so much lately in a lot of different groups of, especially with women, they say you have to see it to be it. But if there weren't Meryls, and I had a couple role models, but I didn't really have anyone that I could see it to be it. And I think that's really important to our country.
Yeah.
It's really important to teams and leadership, and how do we advance as human beings personally and professionally.
Right.
And that's to dream something that you can't see and then go out and set goals to achieve that.
Right. And And you're right, because I see it to be it. Like at first when I heard it, I was like, lame. But to be honest, it came full circle for me one time when I was in the Twin Cities. I was in Minnesota, and I was talking to a charter school, and it was an aerospace charter school, and I was talking to them all day. And at the first half, I had to talk to K through I think fourth or fifth. I don't remember what it was, but they wanted to take pictures with me because it was like a huge day, and I
Yeah.
was taking pictures with like either I think he was in first grade kids, and I took pictures. And at one moment, this kid looks up at me. He goes, "You're black, just like me."
Oh.
And I was like it just like I was like, oh, and I realized that okay, there are some people like you and I that we could see an idea or we could come up with an idea and we could pursue it. But there are some people out there that really need that motivation to see someone else do it to say, okay, and it's not like a lemming behavior, but
Yeah.
it helps boost their confidence. And at that moment when this first grader schooled me on the fact that hey, it's important to represent and to be out there and to be a positive influence, like it just hit home. Like it made me like I was doing it, but I didn't really I believed in it a little bit, but I didn't see any impact. And
Yeah.
he showed me the impact in that one sentence. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, you're so cute.
That's
Yes.
really beautiful. Well, and there's two types of people, right? Someone's like, you can't do that.
Yes.
And you're either going to go, well, shoot, like there's probably some validity. This adult or person of authority is telling me I can't do something. And then there's the other type of people who are like,
Yes.
frickin' watch me, right?
Right.
I'm going to. Like, that's really motivational to me if someone tells me I can't do something.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's going down. I'm going to get it done.
I'd be like, say less. All right.
Yeah.
Bet. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, there are people out there like that.
I hated my first flight in the tweet.
Really?
It was awful. I was like, I worked so hard to get here, and the mask was like, I couldn't breathe, and it felt like I was looking through toilet paper tubes. Like I couldn't see anything. Like I was missing so many senses.
Dude, I was like, they were like, eat saltine crackers on your first day. I had a big old burger, and then I was like, my instructor was like, what do you want to see at the end? I'm like, inverted flight. All right. So, Caroline, because we don't even know your
Yes.
call sign yet. What's your call sign?
Blaze.
Lays.
Don't ask me how I got it, because I could tell you, but then I have to kill you.
Okay, roger that. So I would say probably you have a lot of highlights in your life. So can you name a couple? People know you as Blaze for something in particular. I'll let you talk about that. But you know, what is a highlight in your career, in your life that you are most proud of? One of the things.
Well, I think the highlight in my life is being a mom. I'm a single parent, and I have been doing it on my own for about 10 years now for the majority of my son's schooling and a lot of different things. So that's really important to me personally. But professionally, in the Air Force, I got to fly the F-16, which was, I always wanted to fly a fighter, and I love flying the F-16. I got my call sign when I went to Korea. So I'm named after an American gladiator.
안녕하세요.
Who's Blaze? Yeah.
Okay.
So I went to Iraq when I came back from Korea for my first assignment, Hill Air Force Base for my second, and we deployed to Iraq. And it was during the surge, is what they called it. There was a lot of really bad things going on, a lot of U.S. and our allies being attacked on the ground. And so we got to go in and help to protect our allies and our troops on the ground. And it was very meaningful. I think a lot of people think that the Thunderbirds was the pinnacle of my career, but I really felt like I was put on this planet and I went through all of the training and all of the crazy stuff that we go through to get to be a pilot so that I could be there. And I know that I saved lives of Iraqi citizens and U.S. troops and our allies. But yeah, that was really important to me. So
That's pretty cool.
do you have a thing that you're most proud of, professional or personal?
Yeah, like you, I'm a mom of two. So I have one biological, one adopted, and they're both a pain in my butt. So they're doing
Oh.
everything that kids are supposed to do. I think as a mom, being a mom is a cool thing. It was something that I had to wrap my head around to do, to say I'm up for the challenge
Yeah.
before getting pregnant. Professionally, I have a lot of, to me, some professional cool things that happen. For me, of course, being in the YouTube community, getting accepted, I was stressed out. I didn't realize how much it meant to me to be in the YouTube program. When I interviewed, I was going to leave, before I got the interview, I was going to leave the Navy and go back to education to get my master's and subsequent PhD in some type of science because I still wanted to go to NASA. And then when I flew the U2, or when I was doing the interview process, and I got into the U2 after the first week, the second week we fly 3 flights. And the first flight, I flew it and landed and went back to my room. And I'm like, damn, I need to get this job. Like, it was cool. It was challenging. It was,
Wait, so you flew it before you got the job?
yeah, you do 3 flights in the U2.
Before they hire you?
Yes, and
That's
then,
like dangling a huge carrot,
right.
right?
So if you're trainable in the amount of
Okay.
flights, they say, "Hey, congratulations, we'd like to offer you a position." If not, they go, "Thanks, but no thanks."
Wow.
So about 50% of the applicants get hired at that time. And so when I did the first flight, I was like, man, I got out and I've never been drenched in my flight suit in my life flying an aircraft. And I went back to my room and I go, damn, this is hard. But I'm like, I need to do this. I need to make this. And then the second flight happened and I was like, man, I think I'm on the fence whether they're gonna take me or not. I said, I gotta bring it home. Like, I was stressed out. So um but when they asked to hire me, like, I was like, this is awesome. This is amazing. And at that time there was a civilian that came up to me and they said, you're the first Black female into this program. And I didn't even think about that. Like, I was like, man, I'm just part of the brotherhood. I'm going to be in the Air Force. Like, I'm going to be flying and doing a mission. I'm going to be on the edge of space. I'm going to be in a pressure suit. I'm living my dream. I'm doing things that no one thought I could do. This is freaking phenomenal. That's all I thought about.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be doing a mission and flying with a bunch of other pilots that were, I call it the land of the not quite right, because you got to be a little crazy to fly to YouTube by yourself in the positions that you're in. But I was like, man, I get to do this. Like, I didn't think about, even to this day, people say, how's it feel to be the first? I'm like, it wasn't. I'm a military officer.
Yeah.
I'm a military officer first. I'm serving my country as a pilot, and I get to do this for X amount of years with a brotherhood, a fellowship, sisterhood of people who are professionals in different aircraft and who are from the Air Force, from the Navy, from the Marine Corps, from the Coast Guard, from the Army, and we're gonna
Yeah.
do the damn thing.
Well, and that's the healthy attitude, and I think that's what you have to have. And
Yeah.
I know, like I always, you don't want to stand out, you want to blend in.
Yes.
But we will talk about this later. But there's definitely, I had a friend recently say to me, like you're out there treading water like everybody else, but you had a 30-pound pack on your back. Because there's people that maybe overtly were working
Oh yeah.
against you, or covertly was even worse. And, there's a lot of allies and friends and people who were like amazing teammates that helped
Yes.
us get through as, not quite like everyone else in the squadron, but
Yeah, there were definitely allies, but there were definitely some people who I thought were friends who were not. And I think later on that came out. And then there were definitely people who were just individuals who were just nasty.
yeah.
And they're just nasty in general because I think their lives are unhappy. It and maybe they thought I was a soft target, Wrong.
Yeah. Try me.
Yeah, try me. I'm from the Bronx. Like,
Yeah.
we kick it old school. Like, we'll take it back to the hood.
Yeah. I had one person, he did something stupid in the flight, and I was like, dude, that was scary. And he pulled me aside after, and he's like, don't ever say you're scared. I'm like, well, then don't ever do scary crap. Like, in the jet, like, why are you barrel rolling around like a 3-ship that's got like 2 students in it? Like, there's no reason to do that. But I had another one, and it was like we would have going away parties, and usually it was in Korea, and there was like, drinking involved, and it'd been kind of a night, and they put all the people who are leaving up on the stage, and everyone comes through and shakes your hand, and this guy says to me, I never wanted to be in a squadron with a woman before, but you're all right. It's like,
Oh,
thanks.
thanks.
I hope I changed your mind, but just like, but I never really realized that he wasn't, excited to have it. And I guess I really, especially after that, I took on the attitude that I'm going to do the best that I can to the best of my ability, and, lead by example.
Right.
And, if someone doesn't want to be on my team, then I feel bad for them, because I feel like I did a pretty good job.
Yeah, that guy was a Dremel.
Yeah, I don't think if he hadn't had the liquid courage, he probably wouldn't have said that to me. But just like, man, I thought it was someone who was cool and someone who had my back, and I'm like, I'm glad I changed your mind. But at the same time, you're like,
Yeah, why are you thinking like that?
backhanded compliment. I don't know.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. All right, so at the end, you're telling me the story, right? So if you could do it all over again, and you could go back in time and talk to yourself through all these phases, what is one piece of advice or something that you would give yourself that wasn't so obvious until much later on?
I would tell myself to relax and not grade myself. And really, I was always constantly taking inventory and feeling like I wasn't enough. And really, I think a lot of women in aviation have to be 2 or 3 times better than everyone around them.
Yes.
But I was definitely really hard on myself, grading myself a lot. And that took some of the joy out of like pilot training and some other programs. So just, I wasted energy on worrying that I wasn't good enough, instead of just like being confident and being in the moment. And so that's what I tell like my son and, other people that are going through a really hard time, and they're just like looking ahead at like, what if I fail? Like, dude, you can play that forward. What if like something else will happen? It's not that bad, but you're taking energy from just being present, being in the moment. Like, what's the next test? What are you going to do when you get up tomorrow? Like take one thing at a time, and just enjoy it as much as possible. And that's actually what I learned on the Thunderbirds when I got selected for the right wing. Like, I hated flying wing work in pilot training, because you're flying with a kid who's like a ham fist. They're breathing heavy, sweating all over the place. The jet's like flying everywhere.
Meat hooks.
Yeah,
on the control.
total meat hooks on the control. And I was like, man, I did that, and I was a couple rides in, and flying fingertip, I'm good at it, but I just every time we did it, you have this little like underlying anxiety. And I remember just everything kind of snapped, and I was like looking down at a red, white, and blue F-16 in the Nevada desert going by, and we're flying wing work. And I was like, I'm so freaking lucky to be here. Like, just now in this moment, and everything ended up going great, but I just really loved the things that I saw that other people would love to see with their eyes. Red, white, and blue jets flying over the desert and doing all these different maneuvers. And, I think that's when it took me a long time to really sink in and go, stop worrying about what's going to happen, and, grading yourself harshly, and just enjoy what you're doing.
Fair enough. Yeah, sometimes we have to give ourselves grace.
Yeah. What if you could go back to the Bronx, sit on your stoop with a 6-year-old Meryl, what would you tell her?
Freaking buckle up. It's going to be a ride. No.
Yeah.
What would I tell her? Man, be more bold and daring. Like, especially at younger ages, because you do, you're 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm watching my kids go through it. You're just unsure. You're going with the crowd, the herd, society, the pressure, the peer pressure, all that stuff. Those were hard days, because I had a lot of peer pressure. Like, hey, you're being a tomboy, you need to do this, wear more
Mhm.
dresses, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was like, you really think you're broken. Like, people make you think you're
Yeah.
broken. So I would tell myself, I still at third grade said I'm going to be myself, but it's still hard to live that and to be good about it. So I would tell myself, like, hey, give a middle finger to the people who are telling you all these things and really truly dig into what you're going to do. But I think I did well enough. It's just I can always be more braver, more something. So
Mm.
that's what I would do. Boom, I gotta go pee.